Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Stratton. I'm the Art Instructional Specialist in Fairfax County Public Schools, and we have with us today about 7 or 8 representatives from art collaborative teams who have been working together around Fairfax County, and we are going to talk about how those collaborative teams work, how they changed when we had to close schools, and how they might look as we're moving forward. So I am gonna get us started by having our panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Leah Dubray. I'm a middle school art teacher in Fairfax County, and I'm representing the Middle School Art CT. I don't know exactly how many middle schools we have, but we have roughly about 40-45 participants in our CT, so it's quite big. And I've been teaching for about 15-16 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Maine Zaleski. I'm an elementary school art teacher. This is my 20th year teaching, but 13th in Fairfax. I was in Montgomery County before that. We have 6 elementary schools in my CT, so there are 15 art teachers in my CT group. And this past pre-COVID, we didn't meet quite as often. I would say twice because of they're required for us to meet physically. But post-COVID, we actually met once a week, and we had a fixed schedule. So I didn't press for them to attend, but they all seemed to want to come. So that was very nice.
Turning my audio on. Hi, I am Natalie Shirley. I teach at an elementary school in Fairfax County. I have been teaching, I just finished my 6th year as an art teacher, but my 11th year, I was a classroom teacher prior to being an art teacher. We have about 11 members in our CT, and I am actually part of one of the bigger elementary schools. We have about 1,100 students, so that might make a difference when we talk later versus the smaller schools. And just like Ming, we have met weekly post-COVID or during this time. Prior to that, we did, again, we did meet at our fall in-service and our winter in-service, and then we tried to meet twice outside of that.
Hi, so I'm PJ Neighbor. I'm in Fairfax City, Fairfax High School. I am the Digital Art and Design CT co-lead. And that group has, one teacher from every high school, so it can vary from 20 upwards to 30 participants. This past year, we were able to meet at least, I want to say about once a month, just kind of discussing a lot of technology needs because it's digital art.
So.
Hey everybody. I'm Shannon Springfield. I am the CT lead for the Annandale Elementary Pyramid. I teach at Bryn Mawr Park Elementary, which is right inside the Beltway. This is my 20th year teaching. I was in Memphis, Tennessee before. Our CT has been meeting weekly since COVID started. Before that, we were meeting maybe like occasionally throughout the year, but we really needed to beef up the team, I guess, with everything that was happening. And so it really provided a lot of support and ideas for us to get through the situation, and very helpful.
Hi, my name is Susan Silva. I work in the Fine Arts office with Aaron and Jean Marie. And although I'm not connected directly to any specific CT, I would say that during COVID, I've had the pleasure of sitting in on many of these CT meetings, and that's actually been a bonus. Whereas in the past, we couldn't be at all the meetings, but as soon as they went virtual, we had the opportunity to sit in and hear what was happening in the different CT groups.
Hi, nice to be here. I'm the art CT lead for the Oakland Pyramid, and we have about 10 teachers in that pyramid, which represents about 6 schools. I've been teaching 27 years, and pre-COVID, we actually didn't meet very often. But since we've COVID, we've been meeting every other week, which has been
Great.
really
Excellent. Thanks so much. Well, guys, we are here to talk about your CTs, and we've already been tossing those letters around. And one of the things I want to make sure that our audience is clear on is, what do we mean when we say CT, or do we mean something different if we say CLT? And maybe we'll mention a PLC. Are any of you willing to kind of break that down for an audience in a brief and general overview?
Okay, well, I was thinking about this kind of like in an analogy. I work at a middle school, and I'm lucky enough to have at least one other person in the art department. So I think about my department as kind of like a lifeline, like they keep me afloat. I think about my CT, and I don't necessarily differentiate between CT and CLT, as someone who kind of like helps me navigate where I'm going. However, I think being such a large CT right now and being newly formed, the past few years, we're kind of like still kind of on the docks. We haven't completely got on the ship, but we all have an idea of where we want to go. And all of us together, being the middle school CT, all of the middle school teachers kind of have an idea of we want to get there together and where we're going to go. And so it's kind of like more the voyage.
Awesome. I love it. Natalie, you have something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to say at our school, we meet as a CLT among all the specialists, since we're part of the specialist group. So once a week we meet with administration and discuss students that we all see and compare across the board. Whereas the art CT is just the art teachers, and that's a great place to get support from others that are in the same positions as us.
Awesome. So this is, you provided a really excellent segue there. So we're talking about, we have talked about through your introductions, the collaborative teams, the CTs that each of you work with. And in each of the cases that we've talked about so far until Natalie's comments just now, we've been talking about multi-school art CTs. So where we have art teachers from a number of different schools who come together because, as Natalie so rightly puts it, that is a group that's coming together who teaches the same content at the same level, and that becomes a valuable tool, I hope, and I hope to hear more about that. So Natalie shared that at her school, she is asked to meet in a CLT. So when we use that term, we mean a collaborative learning team. We don't have to really distinguish the difference between a CT and a CLT, but that your assigned CLT at school is with all the other specialists, the art teachers, music teachers, PE teachers, and perhaps others. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
So what I'm interested in hearing is the different experiences from the other panel members. What is the school assigned collaborative learning team that you are expected to be a part of? And I'm interested in hearing any differences. If somebody else has described what's true for you, then you don't need to chime in, but I'd like to hear the variations that we have on this call. Leah?
Like Natalie, the arts is kind of grouped into the fine and performing arts. However, I think we're kind of grouped to make it easier on administrators. So in the past, we've kind of like pulled apart so that, me and the other art teacher could have more conversations that made sense for us, as opposed to trying to figure out a conversation that everyone could be a part of. So we were allowed some flexibility, but it sounds like in middle school, it's fine and performing arts. It's not just the visual arts.
For me, we are a very small school, so we have about 500 kids. I'm the only art teacher at our school, and most of the other art teachers in our pyramid CT group are also either the only art teacher, or they may have somebody come in like one day. For us at school, we also have a pretty full schedule for most of the specialists, so we're not able to really meet every week because there's just no time to do it. But I think for us, for our art CT group, it was really a big deal because we're the only person, like I can't go have conversations with the other art teacher because there's nobody but me. I can look in the mirror and talk to myself. But I feel like it's just really imperative to teaching art, to bounce those ideas off of people and strategies and resources, and it's got to have somebody to do that with. So it's just different for a small school, I think, especially.
I'm going to be talking about post-COVID because when our schools closed, our administrator wanted to meet with us once a week. But it's not just a specialist. I think we tried doing just a specialist. And when they say specialist, they include a lot of people. There's even the counselor and also the STEAM teacher and our aspect person and RP music. And because our school is reaching 800, so we actually have 3 PE teachers, 3 art teacher, and 3 music teacher. So they kind of just thought it was unnecessary for us to all meet as a whole team. So they invited all the classroom teachers to mix and divide us all up to 2 different groups to meet on the same day, but 2 different hours. So that is really just to keep us informed what's going on within our school and if we have any questions. So that's what we did. But before COVID, I really just meet with the music and PE teacher. We're kind of like a little clique.
Right, and we've heard from several elementary people. We heard from Leah, who represented middle school, and PJ, you're at a high school. What's your collaborative learning team look like at your school?
So at my particular school, we have our art department, which I'm the department chair. And so the 3 of us, we all teach different specialties as well. So a lot of our conversations surround learning strategies, how we're providing equitable learning opportunities at our specific location. And then we actually break off into our county CTs where we have 1 studio, 1 photo, and 1 digital art. And from there, we kind of have a trickle down where they pull their information from the county and they see how it can apply at our specific location. Also, something unique at our school is that we are given a lot of opportunities to become part of other PLCs, where if there's a certain area of interest we'd like to pursue, we're given quite a few opportunities at our school level to be part of other leadership teams. And that just kind of creates a good sense of community. And this is at my specific school. I'm not aware of other high schools, but they might do similar things.
Great. You have a number of things that I'd kind of like to follow up on there. So 1, you said PLC, and we want to make sure that our audience knows what that is. So if we toss around the term PLC, that refers to a professional learning community. It sounds like PJ, the stuff that Fairfax has going on has identified some larger groups that you're referring to as PLCs. But another way that is often used in Fairfax County is that the principals and administrators at a school want to form a PLC as a whole school. We are all a community of professional learners together, and that is one of the ways that FCPS likes to use that term as well, in that FCPS is a community of professional learners. So we are a PLC in the broadest sense. One way that that's been distinguished that I appreciate is that at least in this broader sense that I was just referencing for Fairfax County, is that a PLC is the process that being a professional learning community is an ongoing process. And a CLT, or a collaborative learning team, or a CT, that's a structure within that process, these specified groups that come together. Okay, so thank you all for addressing some of those ideas. One of the things that you started talking about as well as you introduced yourselves is how just the meeting frequency changed with your collaborative team before and after the schools closed. And so I'd like to think about that a little bit more. A few of you mentioned that you only met a couple of times this year prior to closure, and that you started meeting more frequently after closure. And so what I'm interested in is how things changed with your CT. And I know this is a much more vague kind of question, but like, how was your CT, and what did you do before schools closed, and then how did that kind of change and evolve?
Well, I think before it was like, we had art and services, and then we had time to meet. We would just chit chat a little bit, or we'd go have lunch together. It was not really like, there wasn't a focus of what needed to be done, the work at hand. And I guess with everything that happened and how it was just completely changed work, that we all kind of came together really with more of like a common goal, like, let's teach this, or how are we going to do this? So it was really specific sharing of not only lessons, but like technology and just different way, like how did you get more participation for this project or this one, or how are you allowing kids to talk about their artwork? And we really worked together I couldn't think of all that stuff. You're really overwhelmed, especially just in general with the pandemic. And then I have 2 kids at home. I'm homeschooling the kid. It's just a whole lot for one person. But when we kind of divided it up and really talked about stuff and got ideas and resources that other people had already made, it was a lot easier. And that's why we started meeting every week. And it was just like, if you can't come, it's okay. Like, some people had meetings occasionally, but most people came because it was really helpful. And even just to talk about, to hear common themes and some of the issues that we had and how we could together like solve it. It was very helpful every week to meet.
PJ.
So this is my second year being the digital art CT lead, and it's been a vision for our CT in general to really try to pull in all of our resources and all of our experience into one giant folder. Essentially, my colleague was creating a website, and pre-COVID, just because of either timing or the distances individuals had to drive, turnout was actually fairly low. And then post-COVID, we attempted to meet at least once a month, and we actually saw participation kind of increase. I think the digital aspect allowed people to actually come and be able to share their ideas, and I think it kind of rejuvenated us a little bit to try to also kind of put the pressure on us to really start pulling together. Because again, we only have maybe one digital art teacher per school. That's very isolated in my opinion. So being able to meet digitally and have this freedom to meet when needed instead of having to wait for a teacher work day, I think really helped us out.
Pre-COVID, I think we were always trying to work on buy-in. Like PJ said, it was a time commitment, plates were packed, there was a commute issue, especially being all of middle schools in Fairfax County. So there was that pre-COVID buy-in that kind of lessened our meetings, and because people wanted to go in a little bit different directions, it kind of watered down our topics to a degree. However, post-COVID, I felt like it leveled the playing field. Everyone was having the same issues and everyone was having to fight that same uphill battle, that it kind of consolidated us. And I feel like even though we are a CT that always changes because we were regions and now we're all of the county, that we were kind of staying on, that, what's it called? We were waiting to get on the ship, but with the COVID, I think everyone felt the storms are brewing. You know, we better hop on and we better start moving now. So it kind of aligned us together. And so we were meeting more frequently, conversations were more in depth, and we did really well, I thought.
Pre-COVID, I feel like I've been in my CT for a long time. This is my 13th year at the same school, so I've been around. But I've been CT lead for a few years, and before there was Deborah, who was a CT lead. But all of us have been around for quite a while. I would say at least 5, maybe 8 years together. So we actually know each other very well. And the changes from people who are newlywed to having family and they all have small children or have been on maternity leave, that kind of forbid us from meeting physically pre-COVID. And now we're meeting virtually. It actually made it a lot easier for us to meet. And before then, we always get together because we have to talk about the Pyramid Art Show, and there's always a certain topic. For us, it's always been that's work on some big art project together at the 6 schools, and that's think of something that we can all work together as a collaborative art project. So that's always been the topic that brought us together. But now, since the art show is canceled and everything else is closed down, I think a lot of us just are so happy just to have someone our age, because little kids at home, to just have someone who think like us, our teachers, artists, to meet, just to talk about things, just to maybe to rent or problem solve, or I want to know what you're doing at your school. What does your administrator say about this? What are you supposed to be doing? And then kind of compare notes to what we are each doing, and then come up with ideas. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do choice boards. Let's make our own website. Let's use Google Classroom, or let's stick to Blackboard, or let's do both. So it's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I would say pre-COVID, our participation was very low. And I think that time was just not on our side. And when we did have time, there were teachers that maybe were opting to stay in their classrooms to catch up on things or do grading or whatever. But post-COVID, I definitely think that we really came together. We really, really needed each other. And I was much pushier this time to really get us to collaborate together, and it was really, really helpful.
Thinking about, from your comments, what this is going to look like as we get into the coming school year. We're in summer. The school year has ended, but we know that we have a school year coming up with many unknowns, and I don't want to get into those right now. But what do you anticipate at this particular moment the role of our multi-school art CTs being as we come into this new school year that we are certain, if of nothing else, is going to bring some new challenges? How do you think things are going to roll this year? Natalie?
I think we will definitely want to continue the virtual meetings. If nothing else is consistent, at least we can have our meetings be consistent and we know we're there for each other. It'll be interesting to have people possibly choose, they'll be teaching in school versus some people may choose to be online teaching. And so that will be an interesting thing to factor in, and maybe it will create separate teams where collaborative teams will form, with teachers who are teaching in school and have those different schedules, and maybe they're on a cart versus online teaching, and what kind of problems arise there or challenges arise there to discuss.
We had said, even at the end, like our team decided we were still good, even if everything magically went back to the way it was, we were still going to use the Google Meet that we had been using to all kind of do maybe even just a quick little after school, you know, if some of us didn't have any planning time, like even if we had a little time after school just to touch base weekly, because it really helped us come together frequently like that. So we had decided that it meant a lot to us enough to just keep doing it regardless. And if, you know, being as how everything is still up in the air, we'll definitely continue.
Great. So one of the things that I wanted to address is a little bit of the nature of collaborative learning teams and kind of what the formal process of CLTs is supposed to be. And in this, what I'm really referring to is the nature of professional learning communities and collaborative learning teams that's really laid out by the Dufours. And folks who maybe are not 100% familiar and might want to do some more reading on this, I'll go ahead and refer to the book Learning by Doing by Richard Dufour and Rebecca Dufour, as well as Robert Eaker and Thomas Maney. But one of the core things that comes out of that we look at a lot in Fairfax County, kind of at a broad level when we're talking about that we are PLCs and that we want our teachers participating in collaborative learning teams, is this idea of what a collaborative cycle is. What is the work of a collaborative learning team? And this is very much that kind of formal collaborative learning team. And when I think about what I mean by the formal collaborative learning team, I tend to imagine like, for an elementary example, the team of fourth grade teachers at a particular school, right? They're all the same grade level. These are the fourth grade classroom teachers. They're teaching the same content. And so the idea, if I can share a little bit of this concept and cycle with you, is that in their collaborative learning teams, they'll go through this collaborative cycle that includes unpacking standards and creating assessments that are going to assess whether or not students are learning in those standards. They'll pre-assess back in their classrooms, and when their CLT comes back together, they'll analyze pre-assessment data. They'll talk about strategies. They'll commit to action and things that they're going to do in their classroom when they go back and do more instruction. Then they go back and they teach and they continue to assess. And then when their CLT comes back together, they plan and modify instruction, they plan for intervention, they plan for enrichment, and then they go back and do those things. I mean, it's kind of the simplified version, and then that collaborative cycle also includes celebrating, refining, and preserving what that team has done. What I'm interested in is what parts of that kind of formalized CLT process, that formalized collaborative process, do you feel like these multi-school art teams align with? Do they? Maybe they don't, because, you know, as I started with, we are not a group of teachers teaching the exact same content at the same school. We're multi-school teams to begin with. So what aspects of that collaborative cycle do you feel like our multi-school teams work toward, or how do you feel about the validity of that relative to the outcomes and benefits of our multi-school teams?
I definitely think reflection is a huge part of that. Especially we do have the curriculum that we follow across the board on, you know, especially for elementary school. I think that a lot of times if a lesson did not work, we will bring it back to our CT groups and reflect, you know, and talk about maybe someone else has done the same lesson, but perhaps it was just something, procedures or steps that, or how the teacher taught that didn't work. And then we reflect on that and we change it the next time around. But I definitely think that reflection is a big part of what we do in that circle. I had made some notes here, and I definitely think we identify resources within our CT groups. We share instructional strategies a lot of times, especially like you said like I said earlier, during reflection time, because there's lots of different ways to teach art. There are lots of different formats. Some of us are in the classroom, some of us are in the cart. Some of us have large groups of students, some of us have smaller groups of students. And again, we reflect and what is it going to say? Reflect on age groups, on technique. Yeah, and then we go back and we refine them within our own classrooms and maybe bring that back and discuss how that worked again. So definitely the biggest point in that cycle would be reflection, I would think.
Awesome. Ming, you have something to add?
I just want to say that in the ideal world, we all follow the curriculums, we all follow our pacing guide, we teach exactly what we were taught to teach. But since we're all a group of art teachers and artists, we're all very creative. We don't follow the curriculum exactly. Plus, if you look at the pacing guide, every school, even though each grade level has a pacing guide, they don't follow them either. And we have to usually, each school, we all kind of correspond to what the students are learning at the time. And not all the schools are doing the same thing at the same time. They will eventually if they follow the same curriculum, which I think they do. Just that we, so we all find each other when we meet and compare notes and the lessons. We find out that we're teaching slightly different things, and even though we might be teaching the same topic, but in different media. So in that sense, when we trade our lessons, we have a lot to learn from each other. And I have learned a couple of new lessons from, say, King Mill, and then someone else at Orange Hunt has done something that then I learned from them, and then we all kind of trade lessons and share. So and then a lot of time we talk about how we introduce the lesson, what is the PowerPoint, and then we kind of trade our PowerPoint to someone ourselves as an intro, and then what kind of paperwork we do. Do we do reflection? What do we use as a planning sheet? So there's just a lot, and you put 6 or actually 15 minds together, you can actually come up with a lot of lessons just among ourselves. So I think it's, yeah, it's always been really fun meeting with my team.
Leah, you have something to add.
I'm going to go ahead and piggyback on Ming and Natalie. I think what a lot of our CLT and CT is kind of built upon is unpacking standards. And just like Ming said, you know, we're very creative. We're out of the box thinkers. So sometimes we don't necessarily want to do the same type of lesson the same way, but we like to bring life, you know, into our lessons, freshen it up a little bit. So having people there to unpack the same standards in different ways is really beneficial. But then also, when you're in a middle school or you're in an elementary school and you don't necessarily have a big department to kind of reflect and problem solve, having an opportunity to be together and say, you know, well, I tried this and my kids didn't get it. What did you do? Having that CT is huge to just kind of problem solve the reflection piece as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. Hey, I'd really like to kind of bring this home because I think one of the main things that I'd love to get out of this, or to allow some of our colleagues around the state to get out of this, is to think about what the benefits of a multi-school art CT could be, and to think about how they might do that. I know from interacting with art educators all around the state through Virginia Art Education Association and in other situations that we have many colleagues who are all out there all by themselves in a school and sometimes in multiple schools and never interact with another art teacher. What would you recommend to an art teacher who is listening to this and thinking, man, this would be awesome, but what do I do? How would I start this? Go ahead, Leah.
I think first and foremost, with anything, you got to build a relationship and that trust. And I think COVID was proof of it. I mean, we had a hard time getting that buy-in and getting that participation when we were pulled in so many different directions. But COVID obviously, you know, popped up, and then all of a sudden it kind of pushed us all in the same direction and united us. And we could work through that together and build that trust in our group, which I think is so important, because without that, you're not willing to share, and you can't share, then you're not really a CLT.
Great. Shannon.
I think like it will, you know, the state is so different and diverse all over Virginia. But I think that, you know, in some places where you are, maybe they just have one elementary school in the whole district. Like it could be, you know, different scenarios. But I think in that case, you know, it would be nice for them to reach out to another district and say, well, we have this elementary, could we do like a multi-district type of scenario? Now that we all know how to use the technology now, so we can really reach out across, you know, different districts and see what other people are doing. And I think like even for us, we have so many elementary schools and middle and high schools, but even just seeing, you know, talking to my friends in Memphis about what are y'all doing for this, like you always get a diversity of opinions and things people are doing different places that maybe you haven't talked about. And I think that's what I would advise people to do first, is really reach out if you're the only one to other districts.
And Natalie?
I was just going to say that similar to what Shannon was saying, is that if you're feeling overwhelmed by creating a whole team of teachers, reaching out just to maybe one elementary school, working on a collaborative project, and then going from there is a very easy first step. Just starting with one other person that you can reach out to, again, is a great first step, and then you can always go out from there. But also social media, I know in Fairfax County, we created a group of art teachers, and that has been, it's almost like a very large CLT group among all the art teachers, but that's an easy way to just post questions and get some feedback from people in the county. So possibly starting a group like that on one of the social media platforms is helpful.
Thanks. And Ming?
Actually, it's interesting that Natalie brought up social media, because my team has always been very big on social media, and I think we were a team before a team, because we're already all on social media, already friends with each other. We know what's going on in each other's life almost, because you can see it on their timeline. But there are teachers among us, especially itinerant, who go to 2 or 3 different schools a week, and those sometimes are really hard to find those people. Just kind of have them sit down with them and kind of have a chat, see how they're doing. So for me at my school, we don't always have the same planning time or free time. So it's almost like in the morning, about 15-20 minutes, I just go find my itinerant and kind of sit down with her and say, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Or is there something else you want to talk about? Or just how's life? So even that, I think that's really important. And we just kind of see each other, not just our teachers or talk about lessons, just friends. I think that's really important, just to remember that we're all human and we need people like ourselves who are our teacher, who are artists, who are creative, and who are in general a little bit off, you know what I mean? And we're like minds, so it's important to just talk to each other.
Great. Emily, you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I was also going to suggest the Smithsonian Art Museums has free workshops, and that's another way to connect with people too, through these workshops.
Absolutely, and of course there are some opportunities like that in other parts of the state as well. The Virginia Museum of Fine Arts offers a bunch of wonderful opportunities also. Hey guys, I am super appreciative of all your comments and your time and your thoughts. I am so grateful to you for taking these leadership roles in the collaborative teams. I've talked to all of you and many other CT leads in Fairfax. And I know that sometimes the CT lead can feel like a difficult thing, but I know at other times it's just the one person who happens to say, this is when we're going to meet, and you just let the group do the work. But whatever your role and however you play it out, I appreciate it very much. I hope that this is an opportunity for other teachers to consider how they might create art collaborative teams. I think with the years that I've watched our art CTs change and grow and evolve, the use and the benefit of these collaborative teams just really spiked right along with the disease. It's probably not a great comparison, but when schools closed and our CTs met on a regular basis, and through those our teachers found support that was super important at that time. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate all of your comments.